Hi everyone, I'm Sunshine Jackson, and thank you so much for joining me for the Sunshine Sessions on YouTube. Well, today I would like to talk to you all about something that actually happened in June, but the reason I'm speaking on it now is because the trial or preliminary trial that is resulting from this case is not going to happen until September 23rd. Well, if you all have not heard, what I'm speaking of is the case where 18-year-old black Virginia Tech football player Isimemem Etute, Etute, killed 40-year-old Jerry Paul Smith, who was a white, openly gay male whom he met on Tinder. This case it's loaded. I'll say it's loaded. It's a situation where you have a young black male who is now, well, he was arrested but released on $75,000 bail for the murder of a gay white man whom he met on Tinder. His defense was that he did not know that the victim, the deceased, the murdered victim, was male. I saw a photo of Jerry Paul Smith, and in my opinion, he's undeniably male. I understand how some men feel like makeup can be deceiving. Not in this case. Jerry Paul Smith looked very much like a man. Now, as the story goes, the two of them had already been acquainted and hooked up for a sexual encounter for the first time in April. It is stated that Jerry Paul Smith went by an alias of Angie on Tinder, and according to Isimemem Etute, he was under the impression that Smith was in fact female. Now, they met up in April of this year, where Smith performed oral sex on Mr. Etute. They then met again in June. I'm sorry. They met again in May 31st, to be exact, for a second encounter. And it was that at that point that Mr. Etute said that he realized that Jerry Paul Smith was indeed a male. Again, I saw the picture of Mr. Smith, and he looks like Mr. Smith. The issue with this case, well, there are a couple of issues. Number one, there's this panic defense that people tend to use when they claim that they are with someone and they did not know that that person was transgender or the opposite sex of which they claim. Now, let me make it clear. Jerry Paul Smith's family have stated, that he was a very proud, very openly gay male. He was not transgender. He had no desire to be a woman, according to the family. According to the photos that I've seen of Jerry Paul Smith, I would say that that is true. Now then, since those are the only photos that we are seeing of Mr. Smith, we have no way of knowing if he's ever dressed in drag or if he has ever presented as female. But I am telling you, after seeing the photos, I don't think he would have been very convincing. That alone begs to question, what is it about, I won't just say black men, I'll say men in general, specifically this particular black male, because this case involves a black male. But what is it about men, or this man in this case, this young man, that being a murderer is better than being perceived as gay? Interesting. You would rather be viewed as a murderer than as a gay man. Now, according to Mr. Etute, he's sorry for what he's done. We don't know what he was thinking. We can only go by what he has stated. And he states that he is so sorry for his actions. He feels like he has let a lot of people down. My intention is not to villainize this young man or turn him into, or present him as some kind of monster. But the issue is, he did murder someone. And it was so violent that the coroner's report states that the cause of death is blunt trauma to the head. Basically, the description of the crime is that Mr. Etute broke every bone in Mr. Smith's face. First, he punched him, and then he stomped him to death. That's some very cruel behavior. Now, on the flip side, if it is true that Mr. Smith did in fact lure Mr. Etute into these different sex acts by pretending to be a woman, well, we all know that that's deplorable behavior. It is. However, even if that is the case, it does not justify someone being brutally murdered. It just doesn't. I saw the picture. And not to speak ill of the dead, I just don't think that Mr. Smith could easily pass for a woman or as a woman. That's just my opinion. I'm new to YouTube, so I'm still learning how to edit and that type of thing. If I'm able to go back and put up a picture, I will. If I cannot do that, please Google Jerry Paul Smith. Google Isimemem, Isimemem, Isimemem Etute, Etute, Isimemem Etute, and Jerry Paul Smith. Those photos will pop up. And the photo of Mr. Smith is pretty telling. And what it is telling is that he is definitely a male. Now, again, when I do these videos, I try to be as fair and as balanced and as impartial as I can possibly be. But I just cannot stress enough. In my opinion, I don't think he could pass for female. You all will have to judge on your own. That leads me to question again, what is it about being labeled as gay that bothers these men so much that they would rather commit murder? Now, as I stated to you all, the first time that they hooked up for oral sex was in April of this year, April 2021. They met again at the end of May. And again, Mr. Etute, stated that it was at that time and that time only that he learned that Jerry Paul Smith was male. That's his excuse. That's what he is stating that has happened. A lot of people are chiming in. A lot of people are suggesting that that is just an excuse, that there's no way that he could have believed that Mr. Smith was female. People are claiming that Mr. Etute was just ashamed that he was dealing with a gay male and what that meant about him. He was ashamed. He was worried that people would find out. All speculation. We don't know that because Mr. Etute has not confessed to that. And Mr. Smith, unfortunately, is no longer here to tell us what has happened because he was murdered. I want to acknowledge Daily Mail and Roanoke.com because those were the two places where I got my information as far as the dates that the two gentlemen hooked up, the information that they met on Tinder. It's my understanding that Tinder was a gay site. I guess that's wrong. I guess some women are on Tinder as well. Um, the date of the trial, the preliminary trial, is September 23rd. Mr. Etute is currently out on bond and under house arrest. The bond was $75,000. All of this information I learned from the Daily Mail and Roanoke.com. The initial story was sent to me by a dear friend who wanted me to speak on it, so I'm speaking on it now. I would love to hear feedback from you all. It's a lot of speculation, as I stated. We don't know. I don't want to falsely accuse Mr. Etute of being a gay male or being bi-curious or anything like that because I don't know. He has not confessed to that, so it's not my place to suggest that he is or is not gay or whatever. Again, what we do know is Mr. Smith is no longer here to explain his side of the story because he was brutally murdered. It's tragic all around because there's the loss of life, or I should say, someone took a life. Loss of life to me is death by natural causes, but someone being murdered, that's actually taking a life. It's tragic. It is tragic because we have that life gone and we have the life of an 18-year-old black male that is forever changed. And again, I'm not extending any sympathy past just being a human being. What he did was deplorable. It was really, really deplorable. It was disgusting to take someone's life the way he took that man's life, no matter what the cause or the reason. And again, let me make it clear, I'm not defending pretending to be a woman if he was not, well, which we know he was not. He wasn't even transgender, according to the family. So I'm not at all condoning luring someone into a sex act based on false information. I'm not at all condoning that. I'm simply saying to murder someone for that reason is very unnecessary and, again, a deplorable act. So here we are, September 23rd, the preliminary hearing. This 18-year-old man who, or young man who was, my understanding from what I read, a kid with no prior trouble in his background. loved to play football as he was a member of the Virginia Tech football team. It's unfortunate. It is unfortunate. Um, but I think it is cause for a dialogue. That dialogue being, what is it that triggers men, in this case, a black male, and I'll say black men because we've heard of these cases before. What is it that triggers them so badly that they would rather be locked up for assault, um, murder, as opposed or versus being labeled gay? I would love feedback from men on this. And again, please come to the comment section knowing that I'm not at all condoning anyone luring someone into a sexual act under false pretenses. That's not what I'm saying. I am simply trying to get an understanding of why being labeled gay is apparently so horrible that you would be willing to kill someone, or you cannot walk away from that. If in fact it is true that Mr. Smith lured, or anybody else out there is luring people into sexual acts under false pretenses, then by all means, those people should be punished in some regard, possibly arrested, possibly charged with a sex crime, possibly charged with sexual assault. I know that may sound harsh, but maybe, that would prevent some of that from happening in the future. However, it is not ever okay to kill someone based on that type of act or that type of behavior. Do you understand what I mean? I don't get it. Is it a pride thing? Is it an ego thing? Is it that the male, not the ego, but male sexuality, is it so fragile that men think it's okay to murder someone who lied to them? And again, we're not even sure that he lied. I've said it multiple times. God, I've seen the picture. I wish I knew how to upload or edit this so I can just insert a pic. Please Google Jerry Paul Smith. I'm glancing over because I took some notes. Google Jerry Paul Smith and you will see his photo. I don't think makeup could have fixed that. And again, I don't mean to speak ill of the dead. And when I say fix that, I mean contour, shape, structure so much that one would think that that person was female. Again, that's my opinion. Opinions vary. Other people may feel like it was possible to do that. I've seen incredible things done with makeup, but that I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. Where are we in society that panic defense can be used as an actual defense and people feel like that's okay? This was a brutal murder. And again, I don't wish jail time or anything like that on any young man or any young person, but he murdered someone viciously and violently. Where, again, are we in society that panic defense can be upheld? Why is it okay to say, hey, he lied to me and told me he was a woman? On the second time that y'all met, he performed oral sex on this young man the first time. and everything was okay. What happened the second time? I don't know. I don't know. Jerry Paul Smith was 40, and the young man who has now been arrested, well, again, he's out on bail and he's under house arrest. The guy that killed him was only 18. That's a video all in itself. I've spoken out on that before. 40 and 18. I mean, again, not to speak ill of the dead. We're not supposed to do that, but hey, I don't know. That it's kind of, if he knew that Isimemem Etute was 18, I mean, if Mr. Etute was honest about his age and this deceased person was 40 and he knew that Etute was 18, I mean, that in itself is predatory. Again, we don't know Jerry Paul Smith's side of the story because he's no longer with us. I don't know. I would really like some feedback on this from men and women, but especially men. What would you do? Guys, I'm speaking to you right now. What would you do if you met a man? I'm not talking transgender. I'm not talking someone who's transitioning. I'm talking a male who says his name is Angie, but you get there and see that he is clearly male, not transgender, male, and identifies as such. What do you do? Do you get angry and you beat this person to a pulp or kill him? Or do you simply walk away and say, hey, that's not for me? They had an interaction in April. Oral sex was performed by the late Paul Smith, Jerry Paul Smith. Oral sex was performed by Smith on Etute in April. Smith was killed the second time that they hooked up. What happened? I'm trying to handle this from a neutral standpoint because I just want to know what happened. I don't think we will ever get the full truth from Mr. Etute because a part of me, again, this is my opinion, my channel, my opinion, a part of me feels like there are things that Mr. Etute does not want us to know. One thing in particular. I don't think he's going to share that information with us. I really don't. But again, because Mr. Smith is murdered, he's dead, he's no longer with us, we can't get the other side of the story. So since we can't get it, I want to hear from you guys. I want to know, what would you do in a situation like that? It was reported that Mr. Smith went by the name Angie on Tinder. There are no photos of him dressed as a woman. So was he just pretending to be a female via text or via messaging? And then when he met these people, or this person, because I don't know anything about the people he met prior to meeting Mr. Etute. When he met Mr. Etute, was it at that point where it was like, surprise? I don't know. But I seriously would like to know. I would like to hear from you guys. What would you do? I would love to think that you would be big enough just to walk away and say, hey, this is not for me. But cases have shown, and this is yet another one, that that's not always the situation. Sometimes there are men, there are guys who cannot clearly control themselves in their behavior. I'm rambling a little bit because it is just so outrageous to me. It's so outrageous to me. And you guys forgive me for the blinking and the crazy eye movements. I am wearing tonight contact lenses, and not my favorite thing. Um, not my favorite thing. And this one is bothering me. So if you see blinking or whatever, or a little crazy eye action going on, that's what that's about. They're dry. I was at a comedy club earlier, and I got in just a little while before I did this video. That's another video. Stay tuned for me and my interview with one of the comedians from the comedy club. But this case is tragic all around because, as I stated, we have a man who's dead now, who was brutally murdered, and we have an 18-year-old whose life is forever changed. Now, I will tell you this. It's going to be really, really bad if Mr. Etute is able to get off on the panic defense. I think Mr. Smith's family is going to be outraged and will take some type of legal action, and rightfully so. And again, this is all hypothetically speaking, because the preliminary, the trial, the hearing, the preliminary hearing is not until September 23rd. And I will be mindful to do an update around that particular hearing. It's crazy. I would love to hear, as I stated, from you guys, to let you know, what would you do? Let me know, what would you do? Man, as I stated, I would love to think that you would be big enough just to walk away, but we're seeing cases like this. We typically see it with trans women. But Mr. Smith was not a trans woman. How do you use the panic defense? Actually, in this case, because he wasn't dressed as a woman that we know of. Again, looking at him, I mean, even if he were dressed that way, when you see his face, when you all Google it, like I've instructed you to, or suggested that you do that, because yeah, again, I'm not. I'll take the time to learn how to do the editing so I can go back and just insert photos, because I'm telling you all, when you see this picture, when you see his photo, you're going to be like, really? That was my reaction, and maybe you all are different. Maybe there is something you will be able to see that I did not see. I don't understand how he could have mistaken him for a woman. A part of me, sorry, a part of me just says that that's not the issue. A part of me says that, maybe he felt a type of way after they met the first time. Maybe he was a little guilty or felt a little guilt and a little shame and panicked in that regard. That's a little bit more reasonable to me, other than saying he thought that this person was a woman. Because, as I stated, keep in mind, they had sexual activity. There was a sexual encounter in April. He did not kill him until May 31st. And a welfare check was done. And so the police found Mr. Smith dead on June 1st. Okay. First encounter in April, killed May 31st is what they are, is what he's telling the police. So that's confirmed. Killed May 31st. Body was found June 1st by the police when they were called out to do a welfare check. It's a crazy case. It's a crazy case. And again, my information from Daily Mail and Roanoke.com. Again, thank you to my subscriber and friend who sent me this story to report on. It's layered. It's layered, and it's late, so I'm rambling, and it might not be as coherent as I would have liked for it to be, but I hope it's coherent enough for us to start a dialogue, because I am really, really interested in knowing what you all think about this. Guys, what would you do? Women, please feel free to chime in and tell me what you think about this panic defense, and about this excuse of not knowing and using that to justify the brutal murder of someone with whom you've had sexual contact. It's tragic all around. It's tragic. My condolences to the family of Mr. Jerry Paul Smith, and my thoughts to the Etute family. Your life has changed, but that's based on the actions of your son. He's still alive. We don't know what his fate will be, but to Mr. Smith's family, my condolences on your loss. It's tragic. It's tragic. It's inconceivable